Happy Easter, everybody.
Yes.
Happy Easter. He done rizzed.
He did the thing.
He's risen.
He said he'd do it, and he did.
He did it. He
When
actually did it.
When I say I'll do something, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
So yes,
Technically, this is our second episode being released after Easter.
first one
So it's
recording
first
after
one
Easter.
recorded.
How was everyone's Easter?
Eventful.
Twas good.
Yeah, I suppose I didn't. Last I saw you, it was
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Yeah, so
A week ago.
dang, that went quick. The
Yeah.
Triduum always goes fast.
That it do. Especially when you're in all of it.
Yep. So did you spend most of it, because we did the Chrism Mass in Crookston, and did you do the rest at St. Francis?
Yes. That is correct. I liturgically flower potted at my home parish.
Did you do the vigil or just the Sunday Mass?
I did the vigil and Sunday morning.
Ah,
I would have liked to stay for the Spanish Sunday morning, but I had a brunch planned with my family.
makes sense.
So I did that. I was able to be there on Palm Sunday for the Spanish Mass, but
Neat. Let's see. Yeah, Nathan and I each went to our respective families. I went to the St. Mary's Easter Vigil with a good portion of my family, and we managed to defy the weather and have a family gathering. So that was good.
I didn't go to a vigil mass because it was late and I went to bed
Tired
before
boy.
people came home. I went to the Sunday morning afterwards. But no, it was good. We had most of our people over at one time or another.
Mm-hmm.
The only people that didn't show up are the people who couldn't leave Chicago because their baby was literally
Newborn
a week over.
little baby niece on the Nathan side.
Indeed. It's not one we share.
Nope. It's his well, not exclusive because you have siblings, but
So for the first time on the podcast, I would like to welcome Anastasia.
Mhm.
Hello, Anastasia Madrano.
If
If you're listening to
audibly
this,
waving.
audibly waving to you. If you're listening to this, I am surprised.
And we know you are.
Uncover it like this far into the future.
Like
What time is it? Am I still alive in your timeline,
Oh, boy.
or have I died and this is the way you're getting to know your uncle? If so, that's weird.
it's surprisingly accurate.
Perhaps not so surprisingly after all.
Yeah, that's true.
Perhaps not. Given
Maybe to her. Who knows in this
Maybe.
future?
right. This is just a possible future.
Yep. Among the many. But yeah, no. So yeah, Easter was good.
Easter was good.
We had quiche, as is our tradition.
We were able to partake of the quiche once with
Oh yes.
during the lockdown Easter, where the only outside of the house human being we saw that day was Riley's mom. I believe. Did Duncan come over that day?
He might have.
Yeah. Man.
He might have been. No, he was home by then. So yeah.
It was a
even though it snowed
wild time.
Even though it snowed Easter weekend, that didn't stop Dad from grilling, and we had surf and turf. It was good. Some crab and steaks.
Yep, crab and steaks. Surf and turf, I like that.
That's
It's an apt descriptor.
that's what it's called typically, I believe.
Yes.
Huh.
It
Is this the first
thing.
time you have heard the phrase surf and turf?
I mean, I might have heard of it, but I never really stopped to think about what that means.
well,
But it makes
it's
sense.
obvious. It's
Because you surf, you have the crab, and then
turf
turf,
as in
you have
land, as
the-
in terrestrial.
Mhm.
Yeah. Beef and
Yeah,
seafood.
your beef and seafood.
Yep. So
So
we
that
are
was
bringing
good.
back the whiskey casts, boys.
We are.
Yes.
I don't have any because I didn't get a glass cleaned, but I have a bottle right here.
Nice.
Drink it straight out of the bottle then.
There we are. Old Forester, the good old standby.
I was actually considering amaretto. So
Hmm. Let's see, what are
Might
we
be
rocking
mine.
today? We have the...
All we have is black velvet as far as the
but it does the trick.
whiskey's concerned.
It whets the whistle.
It,
as it were.
Mm-hmm.
you're saying that weird.
What I'm saying, what
Saying,
weird?
what weird? Where do you get off?
Forget about it. I will forget. Anyway, that can't be the first time we've done that on the podcast.
Probably not. It's hard to keep track at this point over 100 episodes in what we have and haven't referenced.
Yeah, that's true. So just assume that people listening along, it's been long enough for them where they also don't remember. But yeah, no, it's good to kind of getting back into the swing of things. I went back into the office today. We're recording this Wednesday, so I had Monday off. I was able to spend a little extra time at home, played some card games and whatnot, and then came back to work on Tuesday. So short work week, but it'll be a little busy because there'll be photography for the middle school musical on Friday night. So that should be entertaining, if nothing else.
What musical are they doing?
They're doing the musical Annie Jr. So
Are they doing the
Annie
musical
already
middle school
a
musical?
child?
what's that?
Isn't Annie already a child?
I don't know what Annie specifically this one is about.
There's only one Annie play as far as I'm aware.
But it's Annie dumbed down, appropriate for middle schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Shorter run time, less lines for people.
Yep.
That
Something
kind of a
something
thing.
like that. So
Diet Annie.
Yeah. So that'll be my Friday night. But yeah, and then we're already coming up on the end of April. It's amazing after Easter happens how much just like stuff starts going crazy.
Yeah, I've only got like a couple weeks left in my semester too, and it's that came quickly.
Yeah. How's
I
that
have
going?
6 days to finish my capstone. So
Oh
yeah.
boy.
And is that, and then right after that you launch into the propedeutic year, or is there?
Nope.
That's
I
at
have
the
the
end of
summer.
Oh, okay.
In which I will be at IPF.
That's
which
right.
I believe I've mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isopropyl formation.
Isopropyl.
But yeah, so as we mentioned in episode 100, that we will adjust accordingly.
That'll be happening.
That'll affect our schedule somehow.
Mm-hmm. But
I
never
have
fear.
procured a new espresso machine with my Easter dollary dues.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if we'll be
Audibly
able to see it
showing-
from here.
Oh yes,
Neat.
we can see it. Well, viewers at home, you can see it too audibly.
Now, compared to the one we inherited, quote unquote, from the Newman Center, how is this one in ease of use?
Ease of use, very easy.
Because the one we inherited from
Is
Newman
not
was
easy.
not
to
easy
use.
and was kind of large and unwieldy.
Mm-hmm. The thing we ended up using the most off of that was the frothing wand for the milk. That made some pretty banger hot chocolate.
Hot chocolates.
Yep. Which we didn't really take advantage of that this year. Oh well. Next
also,
year.
we didn't have a lot of counter
Neither of you are
space.
terribly practiced at doing it.
No.
Also that.
And it takes some finesse to get it right.
Yep. But yeah, next winter we'll have to give it a try. Although, like Nathan mentioned, we're kind of strapped for counter space in not really the new kitchen. We've been living here almost a year now, in about a month. It'll be a year since we've lived in the new location.
Kitchen doesn't have as much elbow room as the other one did.
Mm-hmm.
The other one had a whole lot of elbow room, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. It kind of spoiled us, honestly.
A little bit, yeah. There were just things we put on the counter that never really needed to be on the counter, but we could, so we did.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, yeah, I guess not really much. Since we've seen so much of each other on the last few weeks, it's been nothing really new to talk about. But
Well, banter doesn't have to be updates.
In
Not to
fact, I
mention-
think I
more
think
fun
as a
when it
rule,
isn't.
it's more fun when we don't.
I have something fun I'm like slightly proud of.
Oh, what's that?
So playing card games at my parents' place usually yields some wacky conversation. So we just began absentmindedly muttering phrases in French at each other. And then my mom will take sort of exclamatory phrases and put her own twist on it. So instead of saying ooga booga, she said ugga mugga. And I was like, see, that there is French for you took my money. And, it was I sort of pulled a Nathan where I just slid the I slid the joke under the radar, and Mom got it, so that worked. She got a kick out of it, no less, which is not easy. So yeah, I'm like slightly proud of that.
You get the Nathan seal of approval. Not that that's the mark to be proud of.
Yeah. Like we were joking in the group chat the other day about Minecraft, and I was like, they have all these biomes in Minecraft. Has anyone considered adding the gut biome? It's like add another notch in their belt, the biomes.
Yep. I didn't.
A notch in their belt.
Yes.
Gut biome.
Yep. I should have just let it go, but I couldn't help myself from going, eh?
You were having a gas. That's the important thing.
So, yes. We've also been messing around with gameplay recording apparatus.
Yes.
So stay tuned.
We have
figure something
jointly
out.
chipped into a HDMI adapter for the GameCube. Because some of them, in addition to the AV port, have like a digital port that was some other proprietary thing. But some people have taken it upon themselves to make converters and sell them online so that they can output in decent quality on HD TVs. And
so it'll look a little better on our main TV for when we're playing with friends, and it'll also look good, hopefully, for recording.
For capture recording. It was because the other day we went to the Fisher House.
Oh, yeah.
Just for an evening. And you were there. But when we played Flushed Away, it gave James the idea of what if we just got a hold of a bunch of random old licensed games and
I just recorded
around with them.
Gameplay videos or streams or something like that. That'd be fun.
And of course, I have several old licensed games at home that range from mediocre to but janky, which is kind of fun.
I mean, like this is the insider track pitch on what we're eventually going to hopefully do. But like the comedy would be sort of janky movie tie-in video game, and me
or
playing
us
it.
being genuinely surprised and impressed at their quality.
That too,
one or the other.
But my likely ineptitude at playing them adding to the sort of comedic value. But last night we did sort of a little test where we were playing. Nathan was playing a cup and double dash, and
double dash, and also because I had initially gotten AV to HDMI converter, the quality isn't really that great on it, but
it works.
We can hook up James's plug and play Pac-Man thing to it and capture game from that.
It's like really, like, obviously the plug and play things were intended for tube TVs, like resolution.
Yes.
So that's reflected in the video quality, but it works. So if we wanted to do random plug and play, like if we got a hold of one of those old like SpongeBob ones or something.
I mean, we both have a Millennium Falcon at home somewhere.
Yep.
That one had some fun ones. The one dumb thing about that one is there was like that lightsaber fighting game.
Yep.
But it was only ever one player.
Luke is OP on that thing.
There's like different combos I did. But the thing is, it's a fighting game that's one player, so you're just up against other people, when the real fun of that kind of a game would be having two people play it. I want a Star Wars lightsaber fighting game.
That would be a good time.
Very fun. But they don't have it because I don't know why. I mean, I think I may have heard that they were trying to make one for the Wii because wiggle waggle sword controls.
And I suppose the Force Unleashed, that had some multiplayer.
Oh wait, I think actually there may have been a multiplayer versus mode on the Revenge of the Sith for like PS2 or something.
Sure.
I may have heard of that because you can play as most of the Jedi characters. That might be worth trying.
It'd be kind of fun. But yeah, look forward to some YouTube shenanigans in the near future.
We'll experiment with it.
Coming
Mostly
soon
just
to a
please
YouTube near
ourselves.
you.
Perhaps to a Twitch stream near you. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Depending on how well we figure that out.
Yeah, the trick right now is getting the audio output to be nice and balanced, which is just going to take some trial and error. But yeah.
Speaking of recording games,
We're the Palladium Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Riley.
We're going back to something we haven't done in a few weeks. Novel ideas. Oh, a novel idea. So yes, this week's novel idea will be on the novel Ender's Game
by Orson Scott Card.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with recording games.
Indeed.
Yes, sir.
It's in the title, but also
in the context.
But also, we'll get there.
We'll get there.
So it's sometime vague future Earth, which exists in, there's like a sort of alliance of nations.
A world hegemony, if you will.
Yep. What was the name of the acronym? I was going to say IMF, but that's like the International Monetary Fund, so it's not quite like that. But anyway.
You were the one that read it most recently, so.
Yeah.
I left my phone upstairs.
So yeah, vague future Earth. The world exists in sort of an international coalition, UNSC almost type of thing, with some subgroups and different things like that. So in America, families can only have two kids. IF, there we go. International Fleet or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. So, which is sort of a international UNSC type of deal.
Making a Halo reference.
Mm-hmm. So, we in this future, in this sort of League of Nations, if you will, population is limited to, you can only have 2 kids per family. So one such family is the Wiggins. However, unlike most families, they were given a special permission to have 3 kids. So you have your first kid, which is Peter Wiggin. Second kid is Valentine. And the third kid is Andrew. But since he comes at the end of the family line, most people call him Ender. He is the
Not
third.
to be confused with the Minnesota Timberwolves
right.
player.
Yes, not
not Andrew Wiggin.
Nope. So the Wiggin children are extraordinarily smart, and kids in this society, as I believe up until the age of 6, they are assigned when they're being studied by the government, they're assigned this thing called a monitor, which basically allows the government to watch everything they do and sort of assess their abilities and keep an eye on them. Most kids have theirs out when they're like 4 years old, but Anders had his kept on till he was about 6, because it seems the authorities are taking a special interest in him. So
I think we should address why the IF exists in the first place. That's kind of an important thing.
So a few decades prior to the story, a sort of insectoid alien race has invaded human worlds twice, and through a great deal of death and suffering, the humans managed, and the heroics of one Mazer Rackham, space fleet commander, they managed to beat back the alien invasion. So now, the buggers, as they're called.
And now humanity kind of lives in fear of them returning again, which is why there's this tentative alliance of nations, which is why children are being monitored, because
they're trying to find the next great strategical mind that can help them just end the bugger threat once and for all. So it seems that one such candidate would be our very own Ender Wiggin. So the story begins when they've taken off his monitor, and so now they're secretly watching him. The authorities are secretly watching him to see how he acts, thinking that nobody can watch him. So because of having his monitor on and being a third kid, there's a lot of things about him that are kind of abnormal. So the other kids on the way to school keep picking on him. So one day, this one kid bands up with his goons to beat up Ender, and he's like, you know what? This is going to keep happening to me unless I do something to end not just this fight, but all future fights. So he kicks the crap out of the ringleader and sort of leaves a sort of fear/respect in the goons, who from then on leave him alone. So back home, the home life isn't great. Because you have the parents who seem to love the kids well enough, but Peter the oldest is a psychopath, just straight up, torturing squirrels to death, the whole 9 yards. but he's very, very smart and shrewd. Like the whole family is. Well, I mean, all the kids are anyway.
It's probably why they had let him have a third one in the first place.
Yeah. Valentine is quite a bit more compassionate. Oh, Peter also picks on Andrew a lot. Valentine sort of stands up to Peter in her own shrewd way and tries to protect Ender as much as she can. And so her and Ender are pretty close as a result. So the government is like, you know what? I think this Ender kid is ready. We got to take him up to battle school up there in space so we can train him to be the next great leader. So one day they show up to his house and they're like, hey, we're taking your kid. Say your goodbyes. We're going. Mm-hmm. So Ender boards the shuttle and they head off to the battle school, which is in an asteroid field, I believe.
Yeah, they ride a rocket bus to the new school.
Mm-hmm. So,
come on, the magic school bus.
Except for they don't toss Arnold out the bus and let him like freeze to death in the cold vacuum of space in this particular
he
instance.
did. He did for sure.
So as battle school is beginning, Colonel Graff is the name of the headmaster of the military school. And it becomes clear that he's been one of the people watching Ender this whole time, and in fact goes to collect him from the family to bring him to battle school. So the boys are brought to the school around the age of 6, and they're quickly, trained how to behave as a unit. They're given barracks. They're given all these different classes and so forth on space combat, etc. And one of the primary places of learning is the sort of zero gravity chamber. Well, actually, the rest of the station is artificial gravity, but there's a zero gravity chamber where it's like a battle simulator, where 2 different teams of students compete against each other. But right off the bat, Colonel Graff makes the decision to isolate Ender off from the others to sort of set him apart and also give him a chip on his shoulders to push him to excel.
But also push everyone to challenge him so he can't
take his spot for granted. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sort of isolate him a little bit just so he doesn't become too chummy with the rest of the students, which he still manages to form friendships in his own way. So as time goes on in the battle school, it becomes pretty clear that Ender is, as they had thought, exceptionally talented. So they
very outside the box thinker.
Mm-hmm. So they bump him up ahead of schedule to the next grade level, essentially, and have him join one of the main sparring factions in the school for the older kids, like 10 years old or so. So let's see. Does he join Salamander team first?
I forget exactly the order
It has
of
been
operations.
far too long since I read it.
I know.
So anyway, he joins a team, and the leader of the team is a kid of Italian extraction named Bonzo, who is a very sort of authoritarian, do exactly as I say, sort of micromanaging leader style. Mm-hmm. And he's like, all right, well, they made me give up a veteran to bring you onto the team. So I want you to basically just sit back and don't do anything so you don't cost us the battle. So Ender being, he sort of rankles at this decision, but, respects the authority and tries to, in his own way, without breaking the orders of his commander, still help out the team and help them win a couple of battles. So it becomes clear to the leadership that under Bonzo, he's not going to advance anywhere. And he sort of kind of makes an enemy of him in the process by being somewhat insubordinate, but is able to help the team win in these zero gravity fights. So they move him over to another team, which is, I believe, Team Rat, which is almost the polar opposite of we're the rats, which is sort of the polar opposite of the first team in that the leader is almost like lazy to a fault, but there's sort of a method to his madness. Everything is super disorganized, but they fight hard and win. Along the way, Ender makes some friends. There is Petra, who is one of the few girls in the battle school, and she's also kind of a pretty strategic mind.
Armenian.
What's that?
And Armenian.
Yep, and Armenian. Who is the? Let's see. Crap! I should almost have
Bean?
the book in front of me. What's that?
Bean.
Bean. Yep. Well, Bean comes a little later.
Bean does come a little later. But
I'm
Bean is
trying to
in
remember
there.
the name of his Middle Eastern friend. What was it? Who he becomes pretty close with. You know what? I'm just gonna look up the names real quick.
Audibly Googling.
Audibly Googling for the sake of the story, because these characters, do become important later.
Right. Because after he's done with Rat, don't they bring a different faction out of retirement and then just put him as the leader of it?
Yep. So yeah, Petra, Arcanian, Maze, not that. This is from the. This is.
But that's just the movie cast.
Spark Notes. Here we go. Ally. Yep. So he was with the launch group that Ally joined the school with. So it's sort of his best friend. Dink. He's the Rat Army leader.
Dink.
Yep. Bernard.
Ding.
Oh yeah, he broke
Ding.
broke his arm on the shuttle up. I'm just going through the list here.
It's just all.
His sort of animosity with Bernard leads him to become friends with Ally and Shen. So anyway, there's a few kids he becomes good friends with. I'm trying to find there's an older boy. I'm trying to remember his name. Because he sort of drops a hint to Ender that, don't take the people in charge of the battle school's word for it. Like, they are messing with you. They're playing their own game with you. They're trying to manipulate you into becoming basically a
good soldier.
A good soldier, yeah, who follows orders, as it were, but also push you and all that stuff. So. And Ender was already sort of aware of that and suspicious of it. So anyway, he starts making friends with different people in the battle school, and they even get together to So Ender, Quick is a talented prodigy strategist, which is why he's here. So he quickly sees and through different games and stuff they're allowed to play at the school, sort of develops his own strategies and tactics and things to do. And he's basically gathered together this group of friends from different teams and classes to get together and practice in the zero gravity room, which they're allowed to do after regular school hours. So he and this close group of friends get pretty dang good, but they're still competitors on different teams. So it comes to a point where Ender's gotten so good at this that they pull Dragon Army, which hadn't been used, a team name which hadn't been used in a long time.
It was like the cursed bad luck one.
Yep. And they're like, okay, we're going to bump you up a level again. We're going to make you a army commander, which is usually like kids around 14 or so. But Ender's only like 10, I think, at this point. So they're challenging him, but also kind of promoting him. And they take him away from his friends he'd been practicing with and give him a completely new set of able but completely raw recruits to see how his leadership skills will go. And so among them is Bean, who is sort of a smart, spunky kid who is basically fresh off the bus from Earth himself. So Ender,
who incidentally is the main character of a spin-off series that is also incredible.
Okay. So Ender sort of secretly leans on him to kind of help teach and be a sub-leader in the army. So Ender quickly, he enforces strict discipline and constant training with his men. They're all inexperienced, but he's like, maybe I can make up for that with these different things. And so his leadership style is a bit different from the rest of the armies in the battle school, because each commander in the different armies has their strategies they'll plan out, basically like sports plays where they'll be like, all right, everybody,
this formation, this
very
maneuver.
micromanaged. Yeah. Ender decides to take a different approach where he splits up his platoon. they have like different platoons in their armies. So he splits them up and gives each of them like their own objectives with a leader who is able to make decisions on their own on the fly. So he takes a decentralized command approach, basically, which incidentally in the real world is used to great effect in most modern armies, notably the United States. But that aside, so this makes his army nimble and able to react much quicker than other armies in the battle simulations are. So he quickly wins skirmish after skirmish after skirmish to the point where he's undefeated. And the battle school commanders, noticing this, up the tempo. Usually the battles would take place once a week, but then they started having 2 times a week. And then they just bump up the tempo to where it's like every day they're having another battle. So it's clear to Ender that they're rigging the game against him. Like they start taking away some of his like experienced commanders and giving him raw recruits again and like forcing him to constantly be adapting and breaking him down kind of. So Ender's finally had enough of this and manages to backtalk one of the commanders and gets in a little bit of trouble for that. Meanwhile, he's been playing this game that the kids are allowed to play. It's sort of it's like a sort of a fantasy-ish game.
It's like a VR unwind in your bed kind of.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a fantasy adventure game. He's exploring around and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you're talking about the part where he gets to the giant's choice, right?
Mm-hmm. Basically,
because he challenges him to a battle of wits.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 cups. One's allegedly poisoned, and the other will grant him passage or something.
And he keeps losing because it's sort of a heads I win, tails you lose situation.
Because he hasn't secured a sufficient resistance to iocane powder.
Mm-hmm. Precisely.
Yeah.
So on one occasion, he just decides, you know what? I'm just going to freaking kill the giant and then see what happens. So he kills the giant. He's like, oh, crap, that worked. I'm on to the next part of the game. And the higher-ups are secretly watching him play this like, oh, dang, he killed the giant. Gee, I wonder what's going to happen next.
And that's like not supposed to happen in the game, too.
No.
This is outside of the bounds of the game. There's some weirdness going on.
Mm-hmm. So I think he ends up going to this tower where there's these snakes that attack him, and he keeps running into this challenge over and over again. And finally, and there's like the sort of the end of the world, I think, is like sort of like the vague end goal to the game. So every time he gets to the top of this tower and there's these snakes that attack him, he kills the snakes, and he looks into this mirror and he sees not his face, but the face of his older brother, Peter, his violent, psychopathic older brother he very much does not want to become, which scares the crap out of him. So it turns out that this game is reactive and meant to sort of learn about the player and tailor the game to the player. There's a few other things that happen, but it's sort of a parable for the inner conflict going on with Ender, because even though he's had to act violently to protect himself, I mean, it's precisely that. He's had to protect himself. He doesn't want to kill his enemies. He learns so much about his enemies that he comes to love them.
Right. It's like, that's why he's such a good strategist.
He's
in
empathetic.
His opponent's head. And when you think like your opponent thinks, you kind of know them like they know themselves. And in that way, you kind of he ends up having a kind of love for them the way they love themselves in a way.
So it's like, to him, it's very tragic when he has to put down an enemy, essentially. And then in real life, that comes to a head because Bonzo, the aforementioned Bozo, is kind of jealous of Ender and his success, and the fact that on the last battle he was under his command was insubordinate, and sort of showed him up. So he gets a group of his goons together, and it's like they're trying to catch Ender alone and beat the crap out of him, possibly kill him, if nothing else, disable him and send him back to Earth so they don't have to deal with him ever again.
But then Ender says, Uno reverse.
Uno reverse, yeah. So they managed to trap him in the bathroom one day when he's completely defenseless. One of the buddy of his manages to tip him off that, this is going down. So Ender is like, well, crap. I don't want to fight him, but I guess I'll have to fight him. So he fights Bonzo, and in the scuffle, disables him. Unbeknownst to him, he actually killed him. But the commander
he dies later in the hospital.
So the whole thing is sort of covered up hush-hush, like they whisk him away, and Ender is really none the wiser. But he's ended the fight and sort of any direct threats on his life from the school. But in the fallout from that, they're like, well, so he's basically passed all the tests we can give him. Let's take him on to this moon, or not moon, but like this sort of a space station asteroid thing called Eros, way on the outer edges of the human colonies.
But before they go, Ender goes back to Earth and visits family, right?
Oh, yeah. He goes back to Earth and they kind of give him a break for a few months on this sort of abandoned lake property, where he gets to meet up with Valentine, who they have been kind of using to help them nudge Ender along when he gets stuck because they know about their connection. And meanwhile, her and Peter have become internet trolls trying to take over the world. It's funny because this book was written in the 80s, so the internet wasn't really a reality yet, and they imagine internet forums as like these curated public debates. It's kind of cute when you think about it. But in this world, Peter's like, you know what? Nobody knows online that we're kids. So let's create these fictional pseudonyms and debate back and forth with each other to exploit the different geopolitical tensions and
yes, I'm
get
above
control.
13. I can make a Facebook account.
Which is, some parts of that are surprisingly accurate. So internet commentary is pre-internet commentary aside. So he's allowed to see Valentine at this lake property, and she sort of, against her will, has to persuade Ender to keep going with his training, which she does, fully aware of what she's doing. And he's kind of aware of what she's doing too. But so he goes with Colonel Graff off to this space station for his final training, which is sort of the advanced battle school is what they call it. But pretty soon it's just him and this cranky old teacher who really pushes him. It's like, who is the cranky old teacher? Why, the famous Mazer Rackham, who defeated the aliens in the last invasion, who is pretty old and is, because of relativity and stuff, they managed to keep alive in the event that the new great leader of humanity emerges. So Mazer is giving Ender these pretty intense, near constant training sessions, trying to break him down. They also bring out to this training station Bean and Peter and Bean and Eli and Petra and
just a bunch of the other battle school kids he worked with and had
who are sort of his closest associates and the ones he worked the best. And they're like, okay, Ender's in charge and these are your subordinates. Because what we're trying to do is let you in on a little secret, Ender. We have our star fleets going out to root out the buggers on their different colonies and homeworlds and stuff. So for the past several years, we've had them in transit to these different locations to fight the bugger aliens and destroy them. So we only
don't
have
tell him that until after it's done, right?
No, they
but
they
they're like,
tell him
we're
it's
going to
in
make you
progress
run
right now.
simulations. We're
Yep.
going to have you do simulated battles above these simulated planets with this
to prepare you for
buggers.
once they arrive, you'll be completely prepared to fight these battles for
You will
us.
know all their tactics and stuff, and Mazer actually lets him in on a little secret about their tactics because, like most real-life Earth insects, or like many colonial Earth insects, they have a queen.
It's basically a hive mind where the
It's
different
basically a
queens
hive mind.
are able to instantaneously communicate to their drones, essentially,
Which is why there's such an effective military force. It's
from
because,
light years away.
Yeah, they can react so quickly.
Like with the speed of thought, pretty
not,
much.
Not light years away, though, because the way Mazer took out the Earth invasion is he ran his ship into the mothership and blew it up,
Yeah.
and the queen died. So he basically pulled an Anakin Skywalker from Star Wars.
What they
1.
learned from that experience was that, like, there are sort of different queens that go off and start their own colonies. In this particular instance, the bugs had come to the Earth colonies and were like, oh, this looks like a great place to set up shop. So they start killing humans because they're insects. They're like, oh, these are drones. They don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But the humans who have their own individualized intelligences are like, hold up, what? Existential threat time. So that was the cause of the last couple bug wars. And so, yeah, Mazer managed to discover, wait a minute, if you kill the queen, they all phantom menace and go away. This is before that. But anyway, so he lets Ender in on that secret. So in the meantime, they've been doing these simulation
Exercises.
game battles exercises with Ender and his crew.
And the stakes keep getting higher.
The stakes keep getting higher. The odds keep getting more and more stacked against them.
But no matter what,
they're at
Ender
odd
pulls out
hours
a
of the
win.
night, just completely wearing him and his team down to like where they're bare knuckling it. They can barely go on. And right when he's kind of at his lowest point, they let him sleep in a little bit one day, and he's like, "Oh, something's going to happen." And then a bunch of generals and Mazer and Colonel Graff are all in this room. They're like, "Okay, this is your final
exam.
test, final exam. You passed this, and you're done with this advanced battle school." He's like, "All right, well, I'm gonna win because screw you guys." So they're given the simulation, and they're like, "Oh, okay." This is Bean points out. This is just like back at the academy.
You're simulating a full frontal assault on the insect homeworld.
Remember, the enemy's gate is down. Bean says, which is what which is sort of the doctrine that Ender used for all of the battles back in the battle school.
Way to reorient their mindset when they're in battle, because like most people
point your feet at the enemy's objective. You had to win, because in zero gravity there really isn't a up or down strictly speaking, but it was a way of like
orienting everybody in one direction.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway.
So they are horrendously outnumbered in this quote unquote simulation. So they're like, you know what? We're just going to drive straight for the enemy planet. There's this secret weapon called what is it, Dr.
I forget exactly.
Yeah, Dr. something.
The point is, it's the Death Star beam.
It's a Death Star beam. Well, it's sort of like a charge that bumps from creature to creature. So like you shoot it and then it works great against clusters. Yeah. So they're like, we're just going to drive straight for the enemy's planet and obliterate it and win the game. And he does exactly that. And when they do it, game over, right? Except for there's a lot of cheering in the next room, and the commanders are like, "Oh, psych, Ender, that was real. All the battles you were doing for the last few months were real.
All the guys in the ships that died because you told them to go to a place,
those were real people who died. But we killed every single last alien. So we're free of the buggers now. You've annihilated their race.
Thanks for the genocide."
Yep. So
and this hits
for the
like
genocide, even though it went so bad.
Yeah. So like we mentioned, Ender he's sort of begun to empathize. Yeah, and devastated, and because of the existential threat of the aliens is gone on Earth, a civil war breaks out that sort of gets
right, because there's nothing to unify against. They start
fighting amongst each other.
Because humans be like that.
Yep, which sort of clears up, but they have to keep Ender away from Earth just so one faction doesn't like claim him as their own and like, rally him to their cause and that sort of thing. And he's kind of devastated and doesn't want to talk to anybody for a while anyway.
Let me jump on this ship at relativistic speed and disappear.
Before he does that,
Valentine joins him, and she's like, "Yeah, I finally got away from Peter. A, B. So the government figured out that we were the internet trolls, but they decided to use us anyway. So, Ender, come with me, and we're going to go to this planet colony that used to be inhabited by the bugs, and we're going to be the governors of this place." And he's like, "Cool, I want to get away from these losers anyway." None too happy. While on this planet, he starts discovering these different structures that look exactly as they did in the game he used to play back in Battle School.
Oh.
And, during his training, he sort of had these weird dreams. And
he's continuing to have weird dreams.
Mm-hmm. And so he goes into this tunnel that looks exactly like this tower that looks exactly like the tower in the dream where he kept like killing
killing the snakes and looking like his brother.
Mm-hmm. Because he didn't want to be a killer, but
guess what?
But despite all of his best intentions, he did end up being a killer. And behind the mirror, there's an egg.
The egg of a queen.
So they are not completely extinct, and he's like, "I'm gonna hide this. I'm gonna allow y'all to live because that's what I want to do. I want to be done playing this game where it's us versus you." Because in their own sort of different intelligence, the bugs realize too late that, oh crap, maybe
these things are sentient.
Yeah, they are sentient. They're like, oh crap, we could coexist with the humans, but we have no way of communicating to them. We're sorry, we didn't know. right as they were being killed. And it turns out that Ender has somehow telepathically linked with them, because that's how they communicate amongst the Queen and her drones. So
via the Ansible.
Yep. So that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
Right there.
From there, he starts flying around in space and becomes the speaker for the dead. Haven't read that book. Heard it's great. Would like
the
to
rest of the series is a very different flavor.
Yeah.
From Ender's Game. It's equally meritorious, but it goes a completely different direction.
So we could easily do them in a different episode because they're
Right.
so thematically and stylistically different.
But being as it is, what are different things we like or cool things about Ender's Game? We're just talking about the book. The movie's all right.
Well, you haven't seen it.
I've seen most of it.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time since I saw the movie, but
Might be
I
worth
didn't
a
like
watch.
it.
Yeah.
I think it's been so long. I don't remember why really, but I think there was some major things they left out.
I mean, which is typical of movies, but
So for the book anyway, what do we like about the book? It's good science fiction, I think.
yeah, it's grounded and like it has like
It just sort of fast forwards the clock a little bit on these different aspects of society, like in believable ways, which I think
for the mid 1980s, does a pretty decent job of it too.
Although it's interesting that like there's a Warsaw Pact still, because this is even before the fall of the Soviet Union, so that sort of colors like the guy's imagining of the future. But also like sort of the two-child policy, like the sort of hyper-controlledness of the world and the existence of the internet, things like that. For the time, it's fairly insightful science fiction. I'm not saying all those things are coming true, but like there's like a believable groundedness to the future it proposes, minus the alien invasions. But
the first book isn't as science fiction-y as the other three are. It kind of has a sci-fi setting and background.
Yeah, I would agree
to
with
the
that.
events that take place, but it's kind of
it's more just
a military story fundamentally.
Yeah,
right.
It's like, what does it take to be a great military leader, and what does it do to you,
Right.
to make that happen?
because there's sort of an inherent ruthlessness and killer instinct necessary, as well as like the brilliant strategy to become an effective military leader. And that's sort of the thing Ender learns rather painfully and against his desires to be otherwise. He's sort
It's
of
like to become the perfect military machine, you need to lose a little humanity here and there.
he doesn't really have a choice in that all the situation is forced upon him, but then he learns over the course of the book that actually, he did kind of choose to. He's like,
if only like passively by not choosing, you know?
Yep. And that, leads to him accidentally killing that kid at the bus stop and accidentally killing that kid in the battle school.
And accidentally killing like
An
altogether
entire
too many-
race of sentient creatures.
Exactly.
All unbeknownst to him until it was too
Until
late for
too
him to
late.
make a decision.
And
So
the
not
other
a great
thing
deal of
is-
moral culpability, but there's still a level of responsibility he has for these different
And,
things.
He feels that very deeply because he has sort of an empathic streak. And how could you not just be like, oh gosh, I just slaughtered an entire race of beings.
A race of beings that he comes to understand, like, were
Very well.
They were like, oh crap, we didn't mean to like kill individually intelligent beings. We thought we were just fighting another hive mind like ourselves, like a remorseful enemy, like, and mercilessly just annihilating them.
And the other thing is, Ender was actually bred for this.
Yeah.
He was molded from his earliest years to become this. The only reason he was allowed to be born was because his parents had
government's
high
allowed.
IQs and both of his siblings were intelligent, just not. His older brother was too psychotic and his older sister was too empathetic. They needed someone that was
Sort of in
both.
between. And it's interesting how, like, in this future, like, religion is sort of implied to be more or less like restricted, if not outlawed, but like still in secret. Like, their dad was born in Poland as a Catholic and their mom was a Mormon, so they're both like pretty religious and oriented towards bigger families. So they want to create a good home life for their kids, but just like can't seem to
society
do it.
makes it really
Petra
difficult
is
to practice.
an Armenian Orthodox.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a thing that comes up in the Bean spin-off series.
Who is now?
Petra.
Oh, Petra, yeah. And then I think Ali is Muslim, I believe is sort of implied.
I don't recall. Could
But
be.
he at one point like secretly whispers salam into Andrew's ear when they're at a good friends.
Well, that just means peace.
Right.
So, I mean...
So I guess he could be Jewish for all we know. But anyway, sort of repressed religion is
Well, if he were Jewish, he would say shalom.
that's true. So yeah,
Well, that is, I think, the thing. They actively repress every facet of them, pretty much.
to increase human cooperation against a large threat. Oh, eventually, Peter does sort of take over the world, but
Comes the new hegemon.
he allows like people to have more than 2 kids and loosens up restrictions, kind of counter to what we think he would do, because he sort of lets on a vulnerability that you never really know for sure if he's being honest or not, or if he's just manipulating you. But he allows people to have more than 1 kid, and then like loosens up restrictions and stuff, and sort of an encouragement for people like, okay, the alien threat is over. We can go out and colonize the stars now. We need more people to do that. We can do the Elon Musk. We need more people so we can colonize planets things. So yeah, there's that. I guess wasn't really sure where I was going with that, but the world building. We like to talk about world building, but
I
good.
enjoy it when the
It's not,
world
like,
feels
super
like
specific.
it exists outside the story.
mm-hmm.
When-
It doesn't get down into like the nitty gritty details, but gives you enough of the big picture to kind of give you an idea of where they're at.
Because in the end, the story, as galactically, as much as it's like galactic warfare, it's a very focused story.
Mm-hmm.
It focuses very hard on Ender himself and his internal psychology, what he's going through in his mind, and the people in his immediate surroundings.
Yep. One thing I found struck me as I was reading the book was I noticed how, as the story progressed from the beginning to the end, events became much more compressed and
In terms of how much time they took.
And
Yeah.
hectic. And
well,
kind
that
of-
too, but then like more and more generalized. By the end of the book, it's just sort of moving at the speed of Ender's thought. So it's sort of signaling that like at the beginning, he's just thinking day to day like a kid would, like an ordinary human kid would. These are the particular events, major events in his like schooling and different things like that, to where by the end of the book, it's just sort of covering the different areas of Ender's thought and more in the span of years instead of days. So it's sort of in that writing trick, if you will, it's sort of showing how Ender's becoming more and more like the alien creatures in his thinking, which I found kind of fascinating.
Which, again, Ender, his whole thing is, if I can think like my opponent, I can predict their movements and totally destroy them. But in the moment where they're most vulnerable to me, I am most sympathetic to them. And so as he's approaching the end, and he's
hitting my
approaching
microphone with the
endgame,
headphones.
if you will,
Yeah.
He's more and more in the psychology of the bugs and how they operate.
Yeah.
And so, which is also probably part of what connects him.
I found that a clever use of the medium anyway. So
Yeah.
it's like a reinforcing character through the actual way the story is written. So it's kind of neat. From what you remember, Riley, what are some cool things you like about Ender's Game?
I've talked about most of them so far, but
Sure.
I think it's just like kind of a textbook good story. It's,
Yeah.
It does everything right, pacing, plot-wise. It's just a well-constructed
The
story.
book is like about 350, 360-ish pages long, so not...
It doesn't feel like it's super duper long.
No.
It goes by pretty quickly.
But it's also just very dense. A lot happens in that time, too.
Mm-hmm.
But like Riley said, the pacing is such that like it pulls you
never-
right along at just the right speed where you don't feel like you're getting lost in the story or it's dragging on too long either. It kind of strikes a really nice balance.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I mean, with that said, maybe some of the things left to talk about would be better said in the transcendental segment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Truth. What is true in Ender's Game?
We should let kids be kids. Don't turn them into military machines.
It's sort of a cautionary tale. Kind of, not like explicitly, but there's elements that are cautionary, I suppose, we can take from it.
It's honestly, a lot of it is about the loss of innocence because of war.
Brought on by war. Yeah.
Because
kids are forced to grow up far faster than they ordinarily should, and that leads to its own problems.
Right. And because he lives in this really cutthroat position where he's forced to harm people. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, his tactical mind says, well, if I harm them bad enough right now, I can prevent all future fights.
Yep.
Which usually
he does.
lethally.
Unwittingly.
Yeah. Which that's a functional philosophy, but not a terribly ethical one.
No.
It's not one that is easy to live with.
And
when it happens.
It's sort of something Ender is forced in every instance to do. Except for, you could argue, like, not so much with like the bullies at the school.
Earlier on, but still that was his
and
underdeveloped pure tactics, right?
Yep.
It was underdeveloped. He was still a kid and he couldn't foresee
mm-hmm.
past that. But yeah. It's an effective strategy, but one that he lives with for the rest of his life.
Right. And I suppose let's see. War sucks.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
But on a finer point, humanity is like Ender sort of is a stand-in for like humans under threat of annihilation, I suppose. He sort of represents the human race in his struggle. And we've seen different things through human non-human conflict where like different nations like look to the 20th century or other instances where they're forced to do more and more depraved and compromised things in order to ensure their own survival.
And to use more and more gruesome means of achieving that survival.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just bugs. We can forgive it. We can sweep it under the rug. They're buggers.
They are the monsterized other. And we must completely destroy them to ensure our own survival. No one ever even thinks of diplomacy in this book. Granted, because they
think about it, but it's not feasible.
It's not feasible because, like, the humans, like, there is a fundamental difference between the way each of them understands reality.
And there is no capacity for communication between them,
mm-hmm.
at the outset, at least.
Yep. And by the time a means of communicating is discovered, it's too late for the aliens.
For the vast majority of the aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There's one left.
There's sort of at least at the end of this book, this is the only one I've read, there's sort of a hint of the possibility of a new future.
There's a new future. It looks interesting, but it's there.
Let's see, any other truths we can look at in Ender's Game? I suppose he does show the value of like true good leadership in his own way.
Right, he earns the respect of his peers as opposed to their fear the way Bonzo leads, or
sheer like enabling like the leader of the rat army does.
Right, he takes a little bit of both. Right, he again strikes a balance between two extremes of leadership.
Mm-hmm. He has his closest friends and invests heavily in them.
He has an inner circle that he can trust, and then
enables them to go out and do things and delegate to them. Yeah, which is generally a good strategy to have in life when you're trying to be a leader. Help your subordinates be the best they can be, and give them things they can accomplish to do, and support them in that. I think another truth, I suppose, in this is that, like on the Nathan's like kids need to be allowed to be kids point, is that there are multiple instances in the story where the government forces Ender not to be properly nurtured because they need him to be their kid, basically.
They need him to be hard and ruthless and to not have emotional connections.
Right. Which, down to even like the headmaster of the battle school, Colonel Graff is sort of taken on sort of a fatherly affection for Ender. He forces himself not to get too close, and like he's never really allowed to be close to his family.
I think they start intercepting his letters to Valentine halfway through his.
Well, she's like, I wrote him every day, and they're like, yeah, he wrote you every day too. Neither of you were allowed to have your letters. I forget if I don't think he was allowed. They didn't allow him to receive messages back and forth from Valentine, and they didn't send the letters that he wrote. So yeah, they're just multiple instances where it's like you can't make a human into a machine no matter how hard you try.
Turns out when the government tries to parent kids, they turn them into tools.
Yeah.
As in utensils for their own end goal.
Well,
also tools.
Human instrumentality, as it were.
Yep.
Indeed.
Throwback.
Mm. Any other things in truth we could talk about?
Covers the major themes.
Yeah. Goodness. What is good in Ender's Game?
Ender's friends are pretty good.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They're stuck in the same crappy situation and stuck trying to be forced in the same crappy mindset by the same crappy people.
Despite the limitations placed on them, they manage to try to bring the best out in each other and be supportive.
And Valentine's good too.
Yeah, Valentine's a good sister. Protecting Ender from Peter and sort of the adversity in whatever way she can, even when she's forced to help like the government. But she protects Ender from Peter and sort of uses her wit to try to keep Peter in check from becoming a total megalomaniac.
Reins him in and balances him out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. It's like half out of fear, half out of like wanting to keep him, from
trying to be a good sister.
Yeah, trying to be a good sister. So, who else? Colonel Graff in his own way is good. He's sort of kind of. He could be worse. He at least cares about what he's doing to Ender, and it impacts him.
He does. He doesn't like what he's doing, but he does it anyway because he kind of feels like he has to.
Yeah.
Harrison, Dad.
Yep. In the movie, that's right. He is Harrison Ford. Let's see what else. What else is good in Ender's Game? I think. Well,
ultimately, at the end,
Ender's empathy is very good, despite the fact he's unable to act upon it.
Not until the very end, anyway.
In the end, he finally quits playing the game that others had created for him and decides to make his own by enabling the aliens to survive. So,
speaking of which, even in the simulation game, he was forced to pick the nuclear option to escape the losses. So it's like, he was just backed into corners he couldn't not overact out of, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Faced with adversity and doesn't quite become corrupted by it per se.
No, he is forced into making some very awful decisions, but he doesn't let it. He doesn't grow cold to them, right? Mm-hmm. He retains his humanity somehow.
Even though
at the end
his culpability isn't there, like he still is like takes responsibility for the things he's done.
Yeah.
Beauty.
We did discuss how well
written
the writings it was. Yeah.
It's good writing.
It is good writing.
Like we mentioned before, it's a good balance of pacing and like the different like descriptions and world building it does are quite easy to follow. It's sort of a young adult fiction book, but I like that it's not like
it doesn't like talk down to its audience either.
Right. Yep. It's at a very approachable level.
It's not a terribly tropey YA thing.
Yeah, it's quite original, honestly. I would like to think you can see some of the things it does like influence later science fiction works and stuff. Like I wouldn't be surprised if the whole Phantom Menacing things came from this.
I think it might have just been George Lucas wanting him to blow up a big spaceship in the back. But
I was trying to think. I wouldn't be surprised if like there are elements of like Halo and stuff that were inspired by this, like basically different. I'd have to like dig further into that to see if there's any merit to it, but it's been an influential book. Yeah, I'd have to do some more reading to justify that assessment. But any other elements of beauty in the book? The characterizations, the character work is very good. Obviously with Ender, but then also the supporting cast.
They're all believable characters.
Yep, each with flaws, each with redeeming qualities. Nobody is really even
Bonzo, you can tell where he's kind of coming from.
Yeah, Ender makes enemies among humans, but he never seeks their destruction. He's always trying to find a way to find ways to work with them until he's forced into a bad situation, which I guess is more of a goodness thing. But anything else with that? Unity, what brings it all together? If the game sucks, don't play the game.
Yeah, why never
changes.
Yeah, actually though,
it's Ender's game.
Yep,
It's Ender's game.
That's the whole focus. The games people play with him, the games he is forced to participate in,
and his own long game of living his own life that he's seeking. He's like, if I can just get through all of this, I can be my own person.
In fact, all of his training is framed as a game because children. But the battle simulations, the VR thing with the fantasy giant, and even the actual war he was fighting was like, no, this is a simulation. This is a game.
The real war is the friends we made along the way.
And I don't know.
The real friends are the war we made along the way.
Yeah, there we go. That works.
There we go.
That works a lot better. Because it wasn't just him controlling these fleets; it was also his buddies that were also commanding pieces of the fleet and stuff.
But the story in general is very focused on Ender.
Yep.
And his reaction to the reality he's forced.
There's sort
to
of a
live in.
pun to his name, like Ender. He
ends the conflicts
and he ends the civilization
pretty thoroughly.
But he also ends the war and ends the game that humanity and himself are forced to play, and manages to open the door for a new future. So he's an Ender, all right. Speaking of Ender, it's about time we enter this game of the podcast tonight, unless we have anything further to add.
That's about it.
Alrighty then. Well, thanks for listening to the Palladium Papists. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts, and leave a rating to let us know what you think of the show. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Papists. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, or suggestions for future episodes, email us at palladiumpapists@gmail.com. We'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.